The impact that it has on our victims of crime quite often is actually giving the victims and their families some idea of how the process works. I think a lot of times the victims and their families come into these situations and are kind of flying blind, and so our services really help give them some transparency.
At Partnership Against Domestic Violence, we say that our services save lives and change lives. We have comprehensive services for people who have been victims of domestic violence. Primarily we serve women, but we do also occasionally serve men. We know that for some of the women that come to our shelter, if they hadn't had a safe place to flee the violence, that they may well have been killed by their abuser. And so we celebrate those lives that are saved.
Ser Familia provides various services to Latino crime victims. All of those are provided in their language and are culturally proficient. It gives them the opportunity to have access to services that are very difficult to find many of the times, and also gives them the opportunity to recover after being victims of a crime. It is really their opportunity to thrive, to go back to their lives, and to really become, once again, thriving members of our communities.
The impact of services is exponential in the lives of victims and their children entering shelter. The Haven is a domestic violence and sexual assault center in the Valdosta area, and Magnolia House is a domestic violence shelter in the Waycross area. And it starts with a crisis call. That crisis intervention is essential to impact their lives, to get them to safety. And then we walk them through the process of our supportive services, such as temporary protection orders and children's programs, outreach therapy. And then we provide permanent housing when they start to leave our shelter, to make sure that they are not only safe in the shelter, that they're safe when they leave the shelter.
At Southern Crescent Sexual Assault and Child Advocacy Center, we're really working to reduce the trauma experienced by victims of sexual assault and child abuse following an assault or an abuse. So how does that work for us? It works in the ways of providing advocacy services, a crisis line, being that person on the other end of the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning when someone needs someone to talk to.
Oftentimes, the Prosecuting Attorney Council of Georgia encounters victims from all walks of life who have found themselves lost in a criminal justice system in which they have described as confusing and intimidating. Our office has a unique victim witness assistance program that really understands those needs of those victims. And it is our overall goal and mission to be able to support them, to be able to facilitate whatever they need to be able to assist and guide them through that criminal justice process.
At Project SAFE, the crisis intervention services that we do change somebody's circumstances from one of danger and despair to one of safety and hopefulness. Our ongoing supportive services change somebody's situation from one of uncertainty and instability to one of security and a place where they can plan for the future.
So this is my 20th year at Faith, and I have seen lots of things change in the state of Georgia for victims, especially the amount of funding that agencies can get through state as well as federal funding sources, which have greatly enhanced our ability to serve in many different ways. And now we really can treat the whole healing of a victim and not just one aspect. We can offer them trauma-focused therapy. We can offer them legal advocacy, medical advocacy. Our powerhouse for children and our sexual assault program can now offer on-site medical exams, whereas before they were treated in the ER.
Well, for one, we have seen the expansion of services across the state of Georgia. A lot of organizations have expanded and offer new services, and there are agencies now where there were none before. We've also seen a lot of sexual assault centers develop sexual assault nurse examiner programs in recent years.
Victim services over the years have changed drastically. What we're seeing is that survivors of domestic violence are facing more challenges than ever. So because they need more, we're having to respond to more and do more. And what that looks like is that we're working a lot more intensely with families, and we're having to be a lot more creative, like we are with our Camp Peace program, where we're doing intervention and prevention work with children who've experienced trauma.
In the 16 and a half years I have worked with victims of crime, the services offered have progressed greatly. Two such examples are more sexual assault centers are offering on-site exams and interviews for victims. This is being done to try to help the process be less traumatic. The nurse and the advocate are highly trained and specialize in helping victims of sexual assault. Another service that has evolved over the years is on-site therapy services. Therapy is critical for both victims of sexual assault and domestic violence.
I think there's been tremendous growth and progress made in victim services. I've been doing this work for many, many years, and 35 years ago when I was working in the field of domestic violence, there was very little funding for domestic violence shelters. There was not very much support for victims. The funds that are available to us now to help victims get housing, to help them get child care, to help them pay back utilities, it really allows them those important first steps to move forward in creating a violence-free life.
It's really become more specialized, which is a good thing. Back when I began almost 18 years ago, I know I'm dating myself, we'd have a couple of victim advocates that work every different type of angle, every different type of case, and so they had to know a little bit about everything. Now, instead of just having that basic, shallow understanding of everything, the ability to grow and specialize into different types of victims' issues, be it elder abuse, child abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, being able to have people in victim services that specialize really helps us in being able to communicate with our victims and their families and to do the best job possible for them.
So what's next for the state of Georgia? I believe it's to continue the movement of expanding services around our state so that ongoing services can be provided to victims of crime, especially in our rural counties. To continue to partner with our funders to evaluate the needs of our victims so that we can make sure that resources are made available for them in our communities. And then to increase the community awareness about the response of domestic violence and sexual assault so that we can have a better response to these issues.
At Project SAFE, we are on a continuous journey of trying new services, innovative things, and learning from our clients and our community and trying enhancing things from that experience. So something like our dating violence text line that is now a statewide initiative started as an idea, a crazy thought. And so what's next from us will be the next crazy thought, the next thing that somebody in our community tells us is needed in order to help people be safe in their homes and safe in their relationships.
We hope to be able to maintain the level of services we provide in this state and continue to improve in line with best practices. More education efforts are needed, prevention in many areas of the state, and educating the community about these issues is always constant work.
Thanks to CJCC, our mental health counseling program for victims has grown quite a bit. The future is going to bring more of that. There is still a lot of need for Latino victims to have access to mental health counseling services and for their children to gain access to those services.
We want every victim and every community person in our area to know about faith and our faith services, because we know there are more people out there that could really use our services. We also are going to be working with our legislatures because we want to give victims a voice to them as well. They need to know the reality of what victims face.
What I hope is that we can learn new ways of doing the work that we do. One of the things in my office, my staff know, I hate it when people say, but we've always done it this way. I want to find out the new ways of doing the work that we do. I think technology is going to play a huge role in the future of victim services, but I also want to make sure we don't lose the interpersonal nature of the work that we do, and we can still have that personal connection to the victims that we serve.
What's next is to continue to listen to victims of crimes and what their needs are and to respond to them the best way that we can. what that's looked like so far is to work with families more intensely for longer periods of time. But what we have found over the 32 years that we've been doing this work is that the needs are ever changing and that we respond to those changes.
We will continue to do what we are doing, but doing it better. Through training, guidance, and support, we will continue with our goal and our mission of putting our victims first, understanding that our voice is their voice.
What's next is we continue providing services for victims and their children fleeing domestic violence and being sexually assaulted. We have 159 counties in Georgia. We have 22 rape crisis centers and 46 shelters. The fight continues. The services need to be enhanced. We continue to build bridges with our communities, and we continue to educate and make people aware of our services. That's what's next.